Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and that is horror novels. I have a wide array and range of horror that we're going to be talking about today, and that is going to span from the people who get scared easily and don't necessarily always love horror to the people who love the intense and crazy horror that's out there. There's gonna be a little something for everyone, so stick around to see what's gonna work best for you. I did spend a good amount of time curating this list, so hopefully I can get through it fairly quickly so they're not here all day. And let me know what you want to see next, because I do plan on this being a series of videos that showcase like my favorites in different genres. So this is just part one in lieu of spooky season coming up very soon. So I figured I would start low on the scary list first. I know like horror is not for everyone. There are some things that are going to scare some people that don't scare others. That is totally fine, and you should get to enjoy what you enjoy regardless of if you're a little scared or not. But I think there's something for everyone, and like my favorite horror tropes are psychological horror. So like the wondering if something is real or not real, not being sure. Anything to do with dreams I find really like interesting. Anything to do with like sleepwalking, anything like that I find very intriguing. Now, today we are going to be talking about strictly the horror genre, not the like thriller mystery genre. I have a separate video planned for that. And there is a lot of crossover between horror and thriller. The other couple of horror tropes that I really like, I love gothic horror. So anything that has like a dark, like classic gothic, think Dracula, dark academia, like that kind of vibe. And I also really enjoy horror that has a lot of paranormal elements to it. So anything to do with like ghosts, possession, demons, like things like that. I find it very interesting the way that it's done in horror. So stick around and we're gonna go ahead and get started into the list. Starting with my not super scary scale of books, I have a couple to talk about. One of them is going to be the Saturday Night Ghost Club, which I've talked about on here before. I think I read this not that long ago, maybe last year. And this one is very much like that like classic fall feel that you want, and the spooky and like real life implications horror. Like there's not a lot of fantasy in here. It's very much like ghost story, small town vibes. It is really good. I really like the cover. It's by Craig Davidson. It's a coming of age story, and I'll read you a little bit of the synopsis. So, an irresistible coming of age story about a group of misfit kids who spend an unforgettable summer investigating local ghost stories and urban legends. I would also compare this to Stranger Things, like that kind of level. It has some like spooky things in here without it being like overtly scary. And it's very like nostalgic feeling. It is based in the 80s in Canada near Niagara Falls, actually. And it's very like found family, like goofy character oriented. So there is a little bit of humor sprinkled throughout, but I think the messaging and how everything comes together is very important and really good. So this is what I would recommend to my friends who kind of want something lower on the scary scale. Okay, and next on the scale, we have Supernatural Enhancements by Edgar Cantero. This is one that I feel like not enough people have read, and I try to put people onto this book all the time. It's the first book I really read that had mixed media, which is something that I love, and I particularly love in horror books. I feel like it adds a really cool element. So you have different narrative elements, like different notes and audio recordings. There's like scripts in here that you're reading. Very much fits the like journal entries. Very much fits like what the book is going for. I feel like where essentially another thing that I kind of like in horror novels that's a little bit more specific is like the mysterious inheritance trope, which is like the main character or whoever we're following inherits a house or a item that they didn't know about from someone they didn't know. I just find that interesting. It usually creates some, it's not a super innovative plot device. Like I feel like a lot of people use it, but in this, it works really well for your main character and their partner who travel to this mysterious mansion that has a lot of secrets, and it appears to be haunted, and they're launching like their own investigation. And it turns out to be a lot more than they thought it was in this like mysterious like Axton House is what it's called. A lot of different things are uncovered in this, and it's done really well. It's spooky and like kind of jump scare feeling without being like super scary. So I think like this is can easily be handled by anyone, and it's really good. Would recommend it. Okay, next, I'm only putting these lower because it is YA, and that is the Merciless series by Danielle Vega. And this series is definitely following like the possession type route. I I don't know exactly what I would compare this to. I feel like if you like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like the original and their remake, like you might would like these. But it's more on the like possession route, and it takes place in this group of friends, and I really think it's quite interesting, and some of the different things that happen throughout this series. It's very fast paced, so I feel like it goes by really quickly. I'll read you the synopsis of the first one. Brooklyn Stevens sits in a pool of her own blood, tied up and gagged. No one outside of these basement walls knows she's here. No one can hear her scream. Sophia Flores knows she shouldn't have gotten involved. When she befriended the popular girls on her first day at school, she admired their perfect hair and their good girl ways. They said they wanted to save Brooklyn. They wanted to help her. Sophia didn't realize that they believed Brooklyn was possessed. So it starts out like these girls think that this girl is possessed and she's not, and it's very good. I love the way that the series like progresses. I do think that the ending is a little bit not as strong as the beginning books, but still definitely recommend picking it up. It is a little cheesy at times if you like that classic like Halloween Scream type horror, but make it YA. I definitely think you would like that series. Okay, next up we have the first one I don't have a physical copy of, but Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valentine. This one I'm putting lower on the list of scary, but still very interesting because I don't want to give away like the entire premise, but you're following this woman who is like programmed, it seems, to think like everything's perfect. And she's essentially like a dutiful like wife. She's at home, she's cooking, she's cleaning, but something very dark and mysterious is happening with her husband that she starts to unravel. And it is just a slow like descent into chaos and like horror. And this one's really good. It won favorite horror in 2021. Newer addition to my list, but I would consider it one of my top favorites now. It is a novella. It's only 103 pages, so this makes a perfect addition to your fall TBR. Two other ones I want to mention that I don't have physical copies of is The September House by Carissa Orlando. This is another one that's newer to my list. This one has a lot of like cheeky, like funny elements to it, but it is still to its core a horror novel, and it is like spooky in itself. But essentially this woman that lives in this house, it is haunted, like very haunted. There's just like ghosts that exist in this house. And she's kind of like in denial and doesn't want to leave. And some of the ghosts she's like friends with. So I just, and there's a lot of like family dynamics and things that happen in this book. But the premise is that when Margaret and her husband Hal bought the large Victorian house, I love a good Victorian house, on Hawthorne Street for sale at a surprisingly reasonable price, they couldn't believe that they finally had a home of their own. Then they discovered the hauntings. Every September, the walls drip blood, the ghosts of former inhabitants appear, and all of them are terrified of something that lurks in the basement. Most people would flee. Margaret is not most people. She is staying. It's her house, but after 4 years, Hal can't take it anymore, and he leaves abruptly. Now he's not returning calls, and their daughter Catherine, who knows nothing about the hauntings, arrives intent on looking for her missing father. To make things worse, September has just begun, and now with every attempt Margaret and Catherine make at finding Hal, the hauntings grow more harrowing. This is a really good one. It has a lot of like mother-daughter dynamics and like just interwoven like family dynamics that I find very interesting. I really loved this one. Okay, and then we have Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I couldn't go without adding a Riley Sager to this list, though most of his novels I would consider thriller. This one definitely leans a bit more horror. One of the elements that I like to Riley Sager's books, for the most part, in almost every single book he writes, there's an element of like, is it paranormal, or am I just losing my mind, or what is happening in this scenario? You don't really know. And that is the same with this one. Essentially, you're following your main character who father wrote a nonfiction book about their house being haunted, whereas the family never really felt like it was actually haunted. They thought he was really like embellishing for the book that he was writing and like really playing it up. A lot of them are very skeptical. This is often compared to the Amityville Horror, but essentially the daughter of the family is restores old homes, and she's too young to remember like exactly what happened when she was a kid that her dad is referencing in the book. He has now passed away. But she doesn't believe any of it, essentially. She doesn't think ghosts exist. She inherits the house after her dad dies, and her goal is to like renovate the place and resell it. So she starts to experience strange occurrences like right out of her dad's book, and starts to like question her resolve, like, is this real or not? And it's really good. I really like how this one ends. Very twisty. Would definitely recommend this one, especially if you were already a fan of Riley Sager. Okay, and now to start to get a little bit more into the scary. We could not have this video without recommending T. Kingfisher. I'm a big fan of T. Kingfisher's work. She has this duology, or I think the third one's actually coming out this year, but What Moves the Dead and What Feast at Night. These are unsettling in a different way. More like, I'm not normally a big fan of like body horror or like gross, like horror like that. Like the gore and that kind of thing doesn't necessarily usually get to me. This one has a little bit of that, but it's more like environmental. I've heard it referenced, I forget the exact word for it, but it's like nature horror. So like there is this fungus that like infects the animals in the homes, like taking everything over. I did enjoy the first one more than the second. This is essentially a retelling of The Fall of the House of the Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Has a lot of that woven throughout it, directly and indirectly. So if you like that kind of vibe, that like darker, like environmental, for lack of a better word, like horror, and essentially a detective or a police officer in this case that is trying to figure out what is happening to this family in this house. These are really good. They're shorter, which I like. Another one that T. Kingfisher has that I really enjoy is A House with Good Bones. This one is kind of similar a bit to The September House, where it is about a daughter like visiting her mom in the home, and her mom is like very rattled and clearly has like had something to happen to her, and the daughter's trying to like figure out what's going on, like haunted in this house. And it's really good too, and is a little bit on the shorter side. Okay, a couple more I'm gonna rattle off. One is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I definitely want to read more by him, because this one really piqued my interest and I really enjoyed also. Essentially, this one is following, it is, I don't know what year it's from, but it takes place like in past, but they believe their daughter to be demonically possessed, but others, and like from the perspective of some other people in the family, believe that she's just mentally ill. The parents are slightly exploitative of this, and they hire a Catholic priest and a TV show that follows this for them, like in their house. And you're also reading from the perspective at times of the sister of the girl who's going through this, and it becomes like a hit television show, and you are really starting to like see the effects, obviously long term, on the whole family and the child going through this. And you're kind of bouncing back and forth between the event and then the future, which is 15 years later, like when the sister is getting interviewed about this. So lots of twists and turns with this one. Very freaky. This one is like pretty scary. Like I would say it's pretty far up on the scale. The other one that I wanted to mention that is pretty spooky as well is, and this one got mixed reviews, episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. I really liked this one. This one also has multimedia in it. It has really good examples of like using different mechanics in the writing. Hold on, I'll find some. It has text messages, emails, but it even has like you can see the text messages right here. That's kind of cool. And then there's also like this one's truly a ghost hunting, like investigative book, but it goes so much further. This one gets a little wacky, I will say, but it is really good and really cool. There you go. There's some too, but this one kind of gets more into like the cultish type horror, which I also enjoy every now and then, but definitely recommend. It's a little bit longer, but it seems longer because some pages are like taken up pretty much with like the recordings and things like that. Last audiobook that I want to talk about is The Last House on Needless Street by Catronia Ward. This one, knocked me off my feet with its twist. Like, I did not expect what happens in this one. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you should read it. It's really good. Essentially, this one is more I don't typically gravitate towards like the serial killer type books, but this one is, and it leans more horror for sure. So this is the story of a serial killer, a stolen child, revenge, death, and an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. So you're following 3 different perspectives in this book, and each one of them are very unique and very intentional. And you think that you know what's inside the house on Needless Street. You think you've read the story before. That's where you're wrong. In the dark forest at the end of Needless Street lies something buried, but it's not what you think. So this one is, I don't want to give you too much information because I feel like going into this one not knowing a lot is really helpful with the way that it ends up. So definitely think that you should read this one. The audiobook is really good. I did the audiobook on this one. Yeah, very good. Last 2, I have to end on some, oh, and by the way, check the trigger warnings for that one because there's a lot of disturbing things in that one. But I still think it's bearable, you know? So my last 2, I have to end on 2 classic Stephen King novels. I think that Stephen King is hit or miss for sure. I don't love all of his things, but these are 2 of my favorites that he has done. Just a very classic, nostalgic, like horror feeling that The Shining gives you. Most of you probably know the story of The Shining, but I personally think that the book is so good because you are like actively in his head, which is super spooky and scary. And you're following, of course, Jack Torrance as he is taking on the new job at the Overlook Hotel. He has his family and they're all there and they get stuck in the hotel and he starts to go insane. Very good. I loved it. And then we have my actual favorite Stephen King novel, which is Pet Sematary. And again, classic tale, but the book is so good. I think better than the movie. And it is following our guy Lewis. He is plagued by this small graveyard of animals that start to come back to life. It has some different things in the movie. It's a little bit different, and that's why I think like some people don't necessarily love reading books after they've seen the movie. I personally do because I feel like it gives you a different perspective than you would normally have, and you get to kind of like view the source material, if you will. That is all I have for you guys today. I hope you have a great spooky season, and please drop your favorite horror recommendations down below. I might do a little horror TBR video to tell you about all the ones that I haven't read that I have on my shelves that I want to get to. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye.